Lawmakers wrote letters to the 4 leading infant formula manufacturers last week demanding answers about what led to the current supply problems and what the companies are doing about it. The 4 companies, Similac, Enfamil, Gerber, and the leading generic label producer, oversee nearly 90% of the formula manufacturing here in the U.S. The requests come as President Biden announced to the FDA that the FDA will allow more importation of baby formula to ease the shortage. This week, the agency is expected to detail how suppliers abroad can get their products to the U.S.
The director of the National Economic Council, Brian Deese, told CNN that the administration became aware of the impending shortage when the Abbott, Michigan plant was shuttered by the FDA back in February. Now, Abbott said last week they would be ready to restart production in the next 2 weeks once the FDA approves, and noted it could take up to 8 weeks to restock shelves with the formula. President of the Center for Medicine in Public Interest and former Associate Commissioner to the FDA, Peter Pitts, joins us now to discuss. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're so grateful to have your expertise available to us. Walk us through, what happened from your standpoint. Obviously, there were actual deaths, I believe, of 2 infants, and so the FDA felt it had to shutter the plant. But it feels like we were all taken quite by surprise here, and people, there are sick children or immunocompromised children who need access to those products who aren't getting it, so that's a health risk as well.
Well, taken by surprise, I think, is the key phrase there. FDA closed its facility in February, and rightfully so. Lacked safety protocols, and the only thing worse than a shortage of baby formula is substandard baby formula on the market. So the FDA was exactly right to close the facility. That being said, what they should have done was begin a very robust education campaign to let parents know that in a couple of weeks down the line, there might be spot shortages. Talk to your pediatrician, think about opportunities. Please don't hoard. They should have talked to retail outlets and stopped potential hoarding right there. They didn't. So that's bad on the FDA. The bigger shot across the bow here is baby formula is a consolidated industry. Only a few manufacturers are in the game. And when one goes offline, whether it's a safety issue or an earthquake or, God forbid, a terrorist attack, shortage is going to happen. The FDA on all sides of its portfolio, food and drug, should really start thinking about strategies and tactics to put into place when this happens again.
Well, and actually they did talk about that a bit. There was some chatter urging Biden to invoke the Defense Production Act. So maybe that is sort of what you're talking about here. But former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said on Friday that the administration is looking into this. Let's watch.
There have been discussion, and some members of Congress have raised questions, say, of the Defense Production Act, which that would be something which is on the table. We've not made a decision about, but would help address issues over the long term. What we are doing here is we're trying to ensure that states and others can plan over the long term, as in the coming months.
Yeah, do you think that's what should be happening right now, Peter?
Well, first of all, as far as the Defense Production Act goes, that's a clueless comment, because you can't call up a milk company and say, start producing baby formula. They're 2 completely different things. Baby formula is a delicate, complicated chemical proposition. And one of the things the FDA did immediately after shuttering the Abbott facility was to reach out to all of the other companies that make baby formula here in the U.S. to have them ramp up their production, which they did. So that certainly helped to ameliorate the shortages a little bit. Bringing in baby formula from overseas will help too. Although baby formula is a low margin, high volume proposition. There's no secret warehouse of baby formula in either Europe or Canada. And certainly when you look at Canada, it's a big country on the map, but not a lot of people. And we can't expect Europe and Canada to create shortages in their own country to supply us. Although Abbott, to its credit, is bringing in a product from its FDA-approved facilities in Ireland. So right now we're kind of at a ad hoc proposition to solve the problem. We're 4 to 6, possibly 10 weeks out to end it entirely. But I think that stopping hoarding and pointing parents back to their pediatricians is the right way to go, at least for the time being.
What about the kinds of baby formula that are widely available in Europe that the FDA will not allow Americans to legally have access to? Seems like, and I've been a major critic of the FDA, throughout the pandemic. I'm glad they got the vaccines approved as fast as they did, but there's a long history in the organization of taking a long time to allow Americans to try products they want to try. Having a scenario where there's just 4 baby formula companies because the market is there's so much regulatory barrier to other entrants. It seems disastrous. And Europeans take this baby formula. I have to believe it's perfectly safe, or that at least our mothers and children should have the right to try it if they're comfortable with it.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, the difference between European baby formula and American baby formula, more or less, is that the labeling is different. So the knot in getting that product into the U.S. isn't safety; it's a regulatory issue. And I don't want to say it's a nitty issue; it's important, but it's certainly something the FDA could have jumped on a lot quicker. Because when you take a major manufacturer offline, shortage is going to happen, and we shouldn't be having this conversation now. This conversation should have happened in February. So we were behind the curve, and we're paying the price for it right now.
Wow, that's pretty. Yeah. That's wow. I'm blown away by it. It's a labeling issue that rather than a safety issue. It's that's pretty. That's got to be frustrating for a lot of parents. I mean, glad to hear the honesty about that, but it's just shortages that could have been. There's nothing we can do now, but could have been prevented, months or years ago with some swifter action.
Well, first of all, it's frustrating for me having to come on TV and do interviews defending the FDA's action. The FDA did the right thing, and then they stopped. And of course, the FDA commissioner works for the president, so ultimately this ratchets up to the White House. I can't imagine that the White House knew anything about this until 10 days ago.
Astonishing.
Jeez. And so now you're saying that we're still several weeks out before we actually solve the shortage crisis. So what are these babies and mothers supposed to do in the meantime? I mean, this is just...
Well, firstly, so the good news is this facility is going to come online shortly. We should have the end of these shortages 4 to 6 weeks. And I know that sounds like a short amount of time if you don't have a baby, but if you do, and parents are already on the razor's edge with young children, they're going to have to continue to scramble. A lot of churches, synagogues, community groups are creating mothers' organizations to help share baby formula. Hospitals have supplies that might be redistributed. The WIC program needs to rethink what families on WIC are allowed to purchase. So we're doing a lot, and we're doing it quickly, and hopefully we'll get to the right place. But again, this is a warning shot across the bow, not just for baby formula, but for other consolidated industries such as insulin or sterile injectables for hospitals or IV tubing. We've got to keep our eye on the prize. Shortages happen. They can be predicted, and we've got to get a strategy in place to make sure that we're not just on the ball when it comes to drug shortages, but also food product shortages.
Yeah, sounds like a major national security crisis, actually.
Yeah. Well,
it could become one for sure.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us. Can't tell you how much we appreciate learning more about this from you, so thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We'll have more Rising right after this.